I thought I'd be getting my revenge on my family. I wish I'd understood back then that I'd just end up shooting myself in the foot. You see, life has a funny way of kicking you when you're down. Not just a nudge, not a playful shove, but a full-force, steel-toed boot straight to the ribs when you least expect it. At least that's how it felt to me. And now I've ended up somewhere I would never have imagined I would be in a million years. My life completely different. To understand, you'll need to listen to the end. I'm Ronnie Rollins, 47 years old, successful businessman, or at least I used to be. I was the wealthy, soon-to-be ex-husband of a woman who spent more time with my credit card than she ever did with me. My kids? Ungrateful brats who wouldn't do anything for me if I were on fire, unless of course they needed a new car or a hefty deposit for some overpriced apartment. But that's not the story here. The story begins with a stomachache. Yes, a stomachache changed my entire life. At first it was nothing. A little discomfort after meals, some bloating, nothing unusual for someone living off boardroom lunches, cheap whiskey, and enough late-night takeout to personally fund half the restaurants in the city. But when it didn't go away, I thought I'd better get it checked out. Can't be too careful, right? I mean, I wasn't exactly a health nut, but I also wasn't ready to keel over just yet. I ended up at this sterile little clinic near my office. The kind with those outdated dog-eared magazines in the waiting room, each one at least 3 years old, as if reading about top travel destinations of 2020 was supposed to distract patients from their impending doom. After they ran various tests and couldn't find anything in particular, they referred me to a top specialist. Just a precaution, they said. Nothing to worry about, really. Now that bothered me. In my experience, it's the things they tell you not to worry about that often come back and bite you on your behind. The specialist consultant was named Dr. Pavel. Apparently he was top-notch, world-renowned, a big deal in the medical field. His name carried weight, the kind that made rich hypochondriacs fly halfway across the world just to have him tell them they had acid reflux. I found him to be a friendly enough guy, too friendly maybe. To me he had the type of bedside manner that felt just a little too polished, as if he'd spent years perfecting it in a mirror. He examined me, poked and prodded here and there in that clinical, impersonal way doctors do, then said he wanted to run a few more tests. Nothing alarming, he assured me, offering that practiced little smile, just ruling things out. There they go again, I thought, quite irritated, medics minimizing and dismissing my concerns again as if I'm making things up. Do they think I have nothing better to do with my days than visit clinics and waste my valuable time? A week later I was back, the same waiting room, the same faded chairs, the same clock ticking just a little too loud. When they finally called me in, I sat in the overly bright office, my fingers drumming against my knee, while he flipped through some papers. His expression was unreadable, calm, too calm. "Well, Mr. Rollins," he said, voice smooth as butter, "there's really nothing to worry about. A minor infection. I've prescribed some antibiotics. You'll be good as new in a few weeks." I should have felt relieved, should have exhaled that breath I hadn't realized I was holding. But something didn't sit right. Just as he was talking, he'd asked his nurse for the patient notes he'd requested earlier. The file had my name, Rollins, stamped on the corner in big, bold letters. And yet, he didn't even look at it. Not once. Why request the file if he wasn't going to use it? A cold prickle ran down my spine. The moment he stepped out to confirm something, I couldn't resist. The file was sitting right there, just an arm's reach away, practically humming with temptation. And they were my records after all. My life, my health. It wasn't like I was snooping on someone else, so I reached for it, flipped it open, and what I saw froze me to the core. My blood turned to ice, my mouth went dry. Stage 4, terminal. The words jumped out at me like neon signs, flashing, screaming, sinking their claws into my brain. My stomach flipped, my pulse pounded in my ears like a war drum. This had to be a mistake. Terminal? Me? And he just lied to my face? Said I'd be fine? What kind of sick game was this? I didn't wait for him to come back. I grabbed my coat and stormed out, the file slipping from my fingers, landing on the desk with a soft, damning thud. Outside, the world kept turning. People walked past, laughing, talking, living, unaware that, for me, everything had just stopped. and in that moment one single thought kept hammering through my skull. I'm dying. I spent the next few days in a haze of anger and despair. Time lost all meaning. Hours bled into each other, days passed in a fog of disbelief, rage simmering beneath the surface like a volcano waiting to erupt. I couldn't stop thinking about how unfair it all was. 47 years of grinding, of clawing my way up from nothing. I built my business with my own two hands, long nights, missed birthdays, endless hours buried in spreadsheets and negotiations. I'd sacrificed everything for success, my health, my time, my happiness, and for what? To be handed an expiration date, 4 months to live, 4 lousy months. The words from that file were burned into my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, mocking me. The letters swam in my vision when I tried to sleep, flashing in bold, unrelenting certainty. I thought about going back to the doctor. I did. But why? To have him lie to me again? To give me some sugar-coated version of the truth? Or worse, to confirm it? No, I didn't want to hear it from him. Didn't want to hear the sympathy in his voice, the empty reassurances, the scripted, "We'll do everything we can." I wasn't interested in the dance doctors did around the dying, and really, what was the point? There was no treatment, no miraculous cure hiding in some lab, no last-minute experimental trial that would save me. Stage 4, terminal. That's what the notes had said. I didn't need a second opinion to tell me what I already knew. Instead, I made a decision. I wasn't going to waste what little time I had left being poked and prodded in sterile hospital rooms. No chemotherapy, no radiation, no surgeries. I wasn't going to wither away in some hospice bed, my body growing weaker by the day, my mind eaten away by the countdown. No. When the pain got too bad, I'd get painkillers. That was it. Until then, I was going to live. Or more accurately, burn out in the most spectacular way possible. For a business that had drained me dry? For a family that treated me like a walking, talking ATM? My kids. My kids. There were 3 of them, and between the 3, I couldn't decide which one was the most useless. Jason, the eldest, 25 years old, full of arrogance and absolutely no ambition. He'd breezed through life with the confidence of someone who had never faced consequences, handed a cushy job at my firm, on a silver platter, mind you, and still managed to screw it up. He showed up late, skipped meetings, and acted like my employees were beneath him. And when I called him out on it, he smirked, shrugged, and muttered, "Relax, Dad, it's not like I need the money." No, of course not. Not when he had my wallet to fall back on. Then there was Sarah, 22, influencer, socialite, professional spender of my money. "Daddy, I need a new car." "Daddy, my apartment is too small." "Daddy, I need a vacation." Need. Never a word of thanks, never a thought about where the money came from. She lived in a world of designer bags and VIP parties, posting filtered selfies with captions like, "Hustle hard," while doing absolutely nothing of value. I once suggested she get a job, just for the experience, something to teach her responsibility. She laughed, right in my face. And then there was Ryan, my youngest, 19 and possibly the laziest human being to ever exist. A college dropout who spent his days in my house playing video games and ordering takeout on my credit card. He had grand ideas, big dreams of being a YouTuber, a musician, a tech genius, but not the slightest inclination to actually work for any of it. "Why should I grind at some dead-end job, Dad?" he once said. "You worked your ass off and look at you, you made it." He missed the entire damn point. And then there was her, the soon-to-be ex-wife, Marissa, the woman I once loved, the woman who once pretended to love me back. I used to believe we were a team, back when I was building Rollins Enterprises from the ground up, working 18-hour days, skipping meals, missing holidays. She used to say she understood. She used to tell me she was proud, but somewhere along the way, my long nights turned into her lonely nights. My business trips turned into her excuses. And before I knew it, I was just the man who paid for her personal trainer, her yoga retreats, her silent little affairs with men who had more time and fewer responsibilities. Now she was just counting down the days until the divorce settlement, sharpening her knives, ready to gut me for everything she could get. And what was I doing all this for? What had I spent my life breaking my back for? The answer hit me like a freight train. Nothing. I had built an empire only to have jackals waiting to tear it apart the second I was gone. Well, if I was going down, I wasn't leaving them a cent. Not a single, miserable, undeserved cent. So I sold my companies. All of them, every last one. Then I sold all my assets, including my houses. If I got divorced and was found to have hidden or deliberately disposed of my assets to avoid sharing them with my wife, I would probably have gone to jail, but what could they do to me if I was gone? I had a good chuckle over that. Next I started spending big. No more budgets, no more careful investments, just pure, reckless indulgence. I booked a first-class flight to Vegas, barely listening as the flight attendant listed the wine selection, because why bother picking one? "Give me the bottle," I told her, grinning like a lunatic. I arrived in style, stepping out of a sleek black limo onto the marble driveway of the Bellagio where the doorman gave me a knowing nod, the kind reserved for men who either had too much money or didn't give a damn anymore. Penthouse suite? Of course. A palace in the sky, bigger than my first office, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Strip. Crystal chandeliers, a private bar stocked with top-shelf liquor, a bed so big I could have lost myself in it. Did I need any of this? No, absolutely not. But what was need compared to the thrill of knowing none of it mattered anymore? Then I went downstairs to the tables. That's when the real fun began. Roulette tables, poker games, blackjack. Name a way to throw money away, and I was there, doing it with a grin on my face. At first, the dealers treated me like any other high roller, all polite nods and professional smiles. But then they noticed how I laughed when I lost, how I doubled down on stupid bets, how I tipped the cocktail waitress $1,000 just for bringing me a whiskey. "You're in a good mood tonight," she said, slipping the crisp bills into her pocket. "Why wouldn't I be?" I grinned, tossing back the drink. "I'm on a mission." She tilted her head. "To win big?" I chuckled. "To lose it all." Word must have spread, because soon I wasn't just another rich guy throwing cash around, I was a spectacle. Other gamblers started watching me, whispering behind their hands. Some looked amused, some concerned, and some, the real gamblers, the ones who lived and breathed the game, looked at me like I was a cautionary tale playing out in real time. At the high-stakes poker table, a grizzled man with cold, calculating eyes leaned in. "Buddy," he said, "you're playing like a man with a death wish." I smirked, tossing in a ridiculous raise. "You have no idea." He watched me for a long moment, then shook his head and folded. "Whatever's eating you, I hope you're making it worth it." And you know what, for a while it felt good, liberating even. No more worrying about the future. No more stressing over ungrateful kids or a money-grabbing ex. No more clutching every dollar like it meant something. I gave away chunks of my fortune to charities too, orphans, shelters, struggling schools. I walked into a diner at 3 a.m. and tipped the waitress enough to cover her rent for a year. But hospitals? Not a damn cent. I wasn't about to reward the people who'd lied to me. But then something strange happened. After 3 weeks on those antibiotics, my stomach issues weren't just better, they were gone. Completely. At first I chalked it up to a fluke, a brief reprieve before the real horror set in, but then a month passed. Then 2. My appetite returned, my body felt lighter, my energy surged. I was waking up refreshed, not dragging myself out of bed like a man waiting for the executioner's call. I should have been happy, relieved. Instead I was terrified, because if I was feeling this good, then something wasn't adding up. 3 months after the original diagnosis, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. Seeing Dr. Pavel's office name on the screen made my stomach clench. But curiosity is a nasty thing. It digs into you, whispering in your ear, even when you know you won't like the answer. When I picked up, the receptionist's voice was bright and professional. "Mr. Rollins, Dr. Pavel would like you to come in for a follow-up." A follow-up. For a man who had 4 months to live. Something was off. At first I didn't want to go. What was the point? I already knew my fate. But the thought gnawed at me. Maybe this was my chance to confront him, to demand the truth. Maybe, just maybe, he'd break down and admit he'd been feeding me lies from the start. So I went. The journey to the clinic felt surreal, like I was moving through a dream I wasn't sure I wanted to wake up from. The streets were the same, the city unchanged, but I wasn't. Every flashing billboard and every honking car reminded me of something I'd done, something irreversible. The penthouse suite in Vegas, the insane poker bets, the donation to the animal shelter that made the local news, the drunken promise to a bartender that I'd buy the whole damn place if she let me name a cocktail after myself. I stepped into the clinic's waiting area, and suddenly everything was too bright. The walls, the lights, the antiseptic smell, it all pressed in on me. A few months ago, I had sat in this very room, oblivious to the fact that my life was about to spiral into madness. Now I was back, carrying the weight of my own destruction. Dr. Pavel greeted me with a broad smile, his handshake firm. "Mr. Rollins, you're looking fantastic." Fantastic? That single word made my blood boil. I glared at him. "Cut the crap, Doc." His smile faltered, replaced by a furrowed brow. "I'm not sure what you mean." Then I saw it. That file. The same file that had sent me spiraling into chaos. It was sitting on his desk, neat and unassuming, like it wasn't a loaded gun that had already gone off. My heart pounded in my chest, my palms slick with sweat. He flipped it open, scanned a page, then snapped it shut. "Excuse me for a moment," he said. "I need to check something with my nurse." Then I heard it. The words that shattered everything. "Janet, can you bring me Benny Rollins' blood test results? He's next, and they're not in his file." Benny. Rollins. My ears started ringing. My breath hitched. "Benny?" the nurse replied, her voice laced with confusion. "Yes, Benny Rollins, 65. Cancer patient." My body went cold. I snatched the file off the desk as Dr. Pavel turned, his face twisting in surprise and anger. "Mr. Rollins, what are you—" But I wasn't listening. I had already seen the truth. Benny Rollins. Not Ronnie. The words blurred together as my eyes darted across the pages. The diagnosis, the prognosis, the grim details. It had all belonged to someone else. Another man, another Rollins. Not me. The weight of it hit me like a freight train. I wasn't dying. I had never been dying. Every dollar I had burned, every bridge I had torched, every reckless, irreversible decision I'd made, they'd all been for nothing. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. No, not ripped, shattered. Like I had been standing on a glass bridge that looked solid until it wasn't. And now I was plummeting, no end in sight. All my hard work wasted, all my money gone. My brain couldn't take it. I lost it. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember the heat behind my words, the wild edge in my voice, the raw betrayal burning through my veins like acid. "You lied to me! You deceived me! You tricked me!" I roared, slamming my fist down on the desk. The file, that godforsaken file, spilled open, papers scattering across the floor. Deep down, I knew it wasn't his fault. It was mine. That made it even worse. Dr. Pavel took a step back, hands raised. "Mr. Rollins, please calm down." "Calm down?" My laughter came out jagged, splintered, unhinged. "You told me I was dying. I spent everything. I gave it all away." The door swung open and the nurse rushed in, wide-eyed. Behind her, 2 men in security uniforms loomed like statues, their hands hovering near their radios. "I am not crazy!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "This was a mistake! A clerical error! Do you understand what you've done?" One of the guards took a cautious step forward. I saw it then, the look in his eyes, the kind of look you give a stray dog that might bite. I was that stray dog. I don't remember much after that. Flashes, maybe. Hands grabbing my arms, my own voice hoarse and desperate, a sharp pinch in my neck. Then, nothing. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed. Not a regular one, though. This one was different. The mattress was too firm, the pillows too thin. The windows had bars, not the decorative kind, the kind that kept people in. I lifted my arms. Thick leather straps dangled uselessly from the sides of the bed as if waiting for an excuse to hold me down. A dull ache throbbed in my temples. Medication, probably. Something to keep me quiet. Keep me manageable. That was months ago. It's peaceful here now. Quiet, predictable. They give me medication to keep me calm. Little white pills in a paper cup 3 times a day. I take them without fuss. It's easier that way. I get 3 meals a day, bland, lukewarm, perfectly portioned. Forks are plastic, knives don't exist. Sometimes, if I behave, they let me walk by the seaside, or so they say. I can't see the ocean from my window, but I hear it, sometimes. Or maybe that's just in my head. My kids don't visit, but they're probably too busy working now that I've burned through their inheritance. I imagine them cursing my name as they punch their time cards, the life of luxury I promised them reduced to nothing but smoke. My ex-wife? I hear she's learned how to work the tills at her favorite store. No more alimony to rely on. Poetic, really. All in all, I'd say it's worked out for the best, wouldn't you? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, add your comments on the story. And if you have a weird tale about something that happened, we'd love to hear from you.